When I refused to move my wedding date for my sister's last-minute Bali retreat, my mother boycotted the ceremony to teach me a lesson in humility. She sent a mass email to our entire guest list claiming I was a heartless daughter who deserved to celebrate in an empty room. I didn't beg, cry, or cancel. Instead, 200 guests filled the grand ballroom, and my husband stood up at the reception, tapped his glass, and dropped a single truth that made the entire room go deathly silent. My name is Arya John. To understand why my mother's boycott backfired into a multi-million-dollar financial catastrophe for her and my sister, you have to look into the bitter, manipulative history of the John family in San Diego, California. For years, I was treated as the dependable, silent workhorse of the family, while my younger sister, Daphne, was elevated onto a pedestal as the golden child who could do no wrong. Our family's wealth originated from my late father, Arthur John, a brilliant biomedical engineer who founded a regional medical logistics firm. When Dad passed away 4 years ago after a long battle with illness, he left behind a $5.5 million estate trust. The trust included our family's primary residence, a stunning 4-bedroom coastal mansion in La Jolla overlooking the Pacific Ocean, along with commercial real estate holdings and liquid investment portfolios. My mother, Evelyn John, was appointed as the administrative trustee of the estate. However, Dad understood my mother's emotional volatility and spending habits. Therefore, he embedded strict conditional clauses within the trust charter. Evelyn was granted lifetime tenancy in the La Jolla mansion and a modest monthly stipend, provided she fulfilled her fiduciary duties with absolute honesty, maintained equal stewardship over his children, and never compromised the capital reserves intended for our future. While I spent my 20s earning a master's degree in software engineering and rising through the ranks to become the lead systems architect at a top defense contractor in La Jolla, Daphne took a very different path. At 24, Daphne declared herself a full-time lifestyle and wellness influencer. She refused to hold a traditional job, spending her days filming videos, purchasing luxury designer handbags, and demanding that my mother finance her jet-setting lifestyle under the guise of building her personal brand. Evelyn enabled Daphne's every whim. Whenever I questioned why tens of thousands of dollars were being spent on Daphne's luxury vacations while I paid off my own college living expenses, Evelyn would scold me. "Daphne has creative vision, Arya," Evelyn would snap. "You're just a rigid technician with no imagination. Stop being so bitter and support your sister." 3 years ago, I met Zachary Hayes. Zachary was a vice president of risk management and asset restructuring at a premier financial institution in downtown San Diego. Quiet, brilliant, and fiercely protective of me, Zachary saw right through my mother and sister's parasitic behavior. With Zachary's encouragement, I maintained a healthy emotional boundary from my family, focusing my energy on my career and building our future together. 18 months ago, Zachary proposed to me during a weekend trip to Big Sur. We were thrilled and immediately began planning our dream wedding. We selected a breathtaking oceanfront venue at the Hotel del Coronado in San Diego, setting our wedding date 14 months in advance for a Saturday in early June. We paid $45,000 in non-refundable venue deposits, hired vendors, and sent formal save-the-date cards to 200 guests, including colleagues, extended family, and longtime family friends. Everything was proceeding smoothly until 4 months before the wedding. Daphne suddenly announced on her social media channels that she was launching a new spiritual wellness brand. To coincide with the launch, she booked an all-inclusive 6-week influencer retreat in Bali, Indonesia. The retreat was scheduled to begin on the exact weekend of my wedding. Daphne called me during a weekend lunch, demanding that I move my wedding date to late November so she wouldn't have to miss her Bali trip. "Arya, you have to change your date. Daphne whined over the phone. "This Bali retreat is essential for my brand algorithm. You can get married anytime, but my launch window is non-negotiable." "Daphne, the wedding is in 4 months," I replied calmly. "The venue deposit is non-refundable, 200 guests have already booked their flights and hotel rooms, and Zachary's family is flying in from the East Coast. I am not moving my wedding date." An hour later, Evelyn called my phone, shrieking with rage. "How dare you jeopardize your sister's career?" Evelyn roared. "Daphne is doing big things in the world, Arya. You are being an incredibly selfish, cold-hearted sister. I am ordering you to call the resort and reschedule the wedding immediately." "I am not changing my wedding date, Mom," I said firmly. "Daphne knew about this date 14 months ago. If she chooses to go to Bali instead of attending her only sister's wedding, that is her decision." Evelyn's voice dropped into a venomous, malicious hiss. "If you refuse to obey me, Arya, then neither I nor Daphne will attend your wedding. In fact, I will make sure the entire family boycotts your ceremony to teach you a lesson in humility. You think you're so independent and special? Let's see how much you enjoy standing at the altar in an empty room. You will learn your lesson." I didn't argue. I didn't yell. I didn't shed a single tear. "All right, Mom," I said softly, and hung up the phone. True to her word, Evelyn launched a vicious, calculated campaign to destroy my wedding. 2 weeks later, she drafted a scathing mass email and sent it to all 200 guests on our invitation list. In the email, Evelyn accused me of being an arrogant, ungrateful daughter who prioritized my own ego over my sister's dreams. She explicitly stated that she was officially disowning me, forfeiting all maternal duties, and urged every relative and friend to boycott the event to teach me a lesson in humility. Evelyn genuinely believed that her boycott would break my spirit, force me to cancel the wedding in shame, and come crawling back to her on my knees, begging for forgiveness and agreeing to fund Daphne's Bali trip. What my mother failed to account for was the sheer depth of respect people had for Zachary and me, and the utter disgust her manipulative email generated among our guests. Far from boycotting, dozens of extended family members, colleagues, and friends reached out to offer their support, appalled by Evelyn's cruelty. Furthermore, Evelyn had no idea what Zachary was doing behind the scenes. When Zachary saw Evelyn's boycott email, he didn't panic. As a vice president of risk management, Zachary specialized in forensic financial analysis. Knowing that Evelyn was making wild financial commitments for Daphne's Bali trip, Zachary initiated a formal premarital asset discovery through our family attorneys, requesting a comprehensive audit of the John family trust. What Zachary uncovered during that quiet 3-week audit was astonishing. The day of our wedding arrived, bright and beautiful under the warm San Diego sun. The oceanfront lawn at the Hotel del Coronado was decorated with white roses, crystal arches, and ocean breezes. Evelyn and Daphne were nowhere to be found. They were sitting at the La Jolla mansion, sipping cocktails, checking their phones every 5 minutes, eagerly awaiting news that my wedding had been a deserted, embarrassing failure. Instead, every single one of the 200 invited guests showed up. The ceremony was breathtaking, filled with tears of joy, warmth, and genuine love as Zachary and I exchanged our vows overlooking the blue Pacific. Following the ceremony, our guests transitioned into the grand ballroom for the reception. The room was vibrant, glowing with candlelight, high-end catering, and live jazz music. Halfway through the dinner service, Zachary stood up from the head table, picking up his microphone to deliver the traditional groom's toast. The room fell instantly quiet as 200 guests turned their attention to the stage, expecting a sweet, routine speech thanking them for attending. Zachary looked out at the packed room, a calm, commanding smile on his face. "Thank you all for being here tonight to celebrate our marriage," Zachary began, his voice echoing clearly across the ballroom. "As many of you know, my mother-in-law, Evelyn, sent an email to everyone in this room 3 weeks ago, announcing that she and Daphne were boycotting tonight's celebration to teach my wife, Arya, a lesson in humility." Soft gasps and uneasy murmurs rippled through the audience. Evelyn claimed that Arya was selfish, arrogant, and deserved to celebrate in an empty room. Zachary continued, holding up a sleek leather portfolio. She thought her absence would ruin this day, but as you can see, this room is full of people who truly love and respect Arya. And what Evelyn didn't realize when she sent that email is that she was setting off a chain of events that would alter her life forever. The entire ballroom went deathly silent. You could hear a pin drop on the carpet. 3 weeks ago, during our premarital financial review, my firm's compliance team conducted a routine forensic audit of the John Family Trust, Zachary said, his tone measured and razor-sharp. We discovered that over the past 12 months, Evelyn had illegally embezzled $380,000 from Arya's trust reserve account to fund Daphne's Bali trip, designer wardrobe, and influencer promotion packages, forging Arya's signature on bank distribution vouchers. Shocks of utter horror echoed across the tables. Several of my father's former business associates leaned forward, their eyes wide with disbelief. Furthermore, Zachary stated, pulling a sealed court document from his portfolio, under the original terms of Arthur John's 2020 Estate Trust Charter, any trustee who commits fiduciary fraud or formally renounces their family stewardship automatically forfeits their lifetime tenancy in the La Jolla mansion and surrenders all administrative control to the eldest daughter. Zachary looked out at the audience, holding up the signed judicial document. In her boycott email 3 weeks ago, Evelyn explicitly wrote, and I quote, "I formally sever all maternal duties and stewardships toward Arya." That written statement, combined with the forensic evidence of embezzlement, was submitted to the San Diego Superior Court on Monday. Zachary paused, glancing at his watch. At 4 o'clock this afternoon, 2 hours before Arya walked down the aisle, a San Diego Superior Court judge officially signed an emergency order revoking Evelyn's tenancy, stripping her of trustee powers, and transferring 100% ownership of the La Jolla estate and trust assets directly into Arya's name. The entire room erupted into stunned chatter. Guests were clutching their chests, staring at Zachary in absolute awe. And as a wedding gift to my beautiful wife, Zachary concluded with a warm, serene smile, at 6 o'clock tonight, county sheriff deputies served Evelyn with a 24-hour emergency notice to vacate the La Jolla property, while federal financial regulators froze all offshore accounts tied to Daphne's Bali retreat pending full criminal restitution. Zachary raised his champagne glass high into the air. So tonight, we toast to truth, integrity, and the stunning victory of my incredible wife, Arya. Cheers! The entire ballroom stood up as one, roaring with thunderous applause, cheering and clapping as Zachary set the microphone down and kissed me tenderly on the forehead. While our guests were dancing and celebrating in Coronado, chaos was unfolding at the La Jolla mansion. When sheriff deputies pulled into the driveway and served Evelyn with the emergency vacate order, my mother completely lost her mind. She screamed, wept, and tried to call my phone dozens of times, only to realize her number had been permanently blocked. Daphne's Bali retreat was canceled instantly when her luxury booking cards were declined at the airport. Stranded at the terminal with 6 suitcases, Daphne was forced to take a rideshare back home, only to find her mother sitting on the curb, surrounded by packed boxes, weeping hysterically under the watchful eye of court officers. The legal fallout was swift, methodical, and total. To avoid serving a 3-year state prison sentence for corporate forgery and trust embezzlement, Evelyn entered a formal diversion agreement with the district attorney. She was forced to surrender all remaining personal savings, forfeit her luxury automobile, and move into a small 1-bedroom apartment in a distant suburb, living on a modest fixed pension while working part-time as a retail clerk to pay off court fees. Daphne's influencer aspirations collapsed overnight. Stripped of my mother's financial backing and facing widespread public mockery on social media after the trust scandal was leaked, Daphne was forced to abandon her brand, sell her luxury designer collection on resale platforms, and take an entry-level job as a receptionist at a local gym to pay her monthly rent. Meanwhile, Zachary and I stepped into a chapter of extraordinary happiness, peace, and financial security. We renovated the La Jolla coastal estate, transforming it into our dream family home overlooking the ocean. 2 years after our wedding, we welcomed a healthy, beautiful baby girl named Clara into the world, surrounding her with an atmosphere of unconditional love, respect, and emotional maturity. Using the recovered trust capital and liquid assets, I established the Arthur John Medical Software Initiative, a $4 million philanthropic trust that funds open-source biomedical research, university scholarships, and technical grants for young women pursuing careers in software engineering and medical technology. Sitting on the oceanfront balcony of our La Jolla home as the sun sets in a warm palette of orange and gold over the Pacific, listening to Clara's laughter echo through the garden while Zachary holds my hand, I know with absolute clarity that true humility isn't about letting toxic people walk over you. It is about honoring your self-worth, protecting your boundaries, and letting the truth dismantle those who tried to break you.
Educational lesson. This narrative demonstrates a critical principle regarding fiduciary responsibility, legal leverage, and the foolishness of weaponizing emotional boycotts. Narcissistic family members often assume that blood ties grant them permanent immunity, allowing them to engage in financial manipulation and public humiliation without consequence. However, legal trust charters and financial compliance laws operate on objective evidence, not emotional theater. When entitled individuals attempt to use public boycotts or public shame to enforce compliance, they frequently expose their own legal vulnerabilities to those who hold actual accountability tools. Integrity and legal preparation will always triumph over performative malice. Personal advice. If you are facing toxic family members who threaten to boycott important milestones, publicly humiliate you, or demand that you sacrifice your happiness for an entitled relative, do not engage in emotional begging or shouting matches. Maintain calm composure, protect your legal and financial interests behind the scenes, and allow toxic individuals to execute their own dramatic exits. Surround yourself with people who celebrate your worth, enforce unbreakable boundaries, and remember that walking away into your own light is the ultimate demonstration of self-respect.